Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Nick. Good morning, Jeff. Let's see here. Get some folks to show up here for a second. Good morning, Asim. L Strong, good morning. I know I am in direct competition with the launch of the Virgin Galactic thing this morning. And I don't know if I could even show that on here without getting some sort of copyright violation. But for those that are watching dual stream, good morning for both of y'all. It looks like they're not even doing anything yet. All right. Well, anyway, they're launching a billionaire into somewhat space this morning. So if you got to jump off and watch that, you got to jump off and watch that. So anyway, good morning. I appreciate all y'all that are here so far this morning. Frank, hello. Wow, it seems already starting with the questions. That's great. What is AppDaemon? I will tell you what AppDaemon. AppDaemon is a thing that allows you to run Python programs inside Home Assistant. And let's see, that's not what I was looking for. Well, anyway, that's what it is. It allows you to run programs inside of Home Assistant. It's a loosely, let me just read it. It's a loosely coupled, multi-threaded sandbox Python execution environment for writing automation apps for Home Assistant and home automation software. It also provides the HA dashboard for wall-mounted tablets. Now, a long time ago, and you'll have to excuse me, a little rough around the edges this morning, but working through it. A long time ago, the only way to get a really decent dashboard was something like AppDaemon or something like that. And I've since found that the Home Assistant native UI does a pretty good job of allowing you to build apps for things like tablets and things. So this is a nice thing, but if you don't need it, you can run it straight through Home Assistant. I don't remember now what the advantages were. I was running this in fully kiosk and HA dashboard and all that stuff. And again, it was when the UI wasn't as polished in Home Assistant as it is now. But anyway, you can look through it. But that's what AppDaemon is, Asim. But it's not just that. It's not just a dashboard. When Nest initially announced their smart things, or whatever they call it, smart device API, there was an AppDaemon program that was running that I ran in order to be able to connect to the Google stuff to Home Assistant. And that has since been, in my opinion, or in my experience, has been deprecated simply because there's a native add-on now. So anyway, AppDaemon's useful for doing, and I'm sure y'all have other things that you're doing with this besides that, but it'll run any sandbox Python program, or it'll run any Python program for the most part. Then you can read through that. And I did reference it in one of my videos when I was doing the Nest stuff. So that's, I wonder if that's why that's coming up here in this question. Good morning, Jeff. What are you working on this morning, Jeff? Hello from Phoenix. Frank Phoenix. I bet Frank Phoenix is not in Phoenix. And then Johnny, good morning. And Zappy, good morning. So this morning is, if you are watching closely, you notice I haven't live streamed in a couple 3 weeks. I try to do a live stream every 2 weeks, but in the summertime, that may or may not happen regularly, just because there's a lot of family stuff going on. We were out of town for a couple of trips. Actually, we did a lot of things last week, and so anyway, I just didn't have time to live stream, but I did get a video out, which was nice. I recorded it a couple of weeks before that, scheduled it and all that jazz, so you'd have some content. Also, this here is a different dashboard. I was experimenting, and I'll probably make a video on a updated dashboard, but this is an Apex chart. I was playing around with Apex charts. These are both Apex charts. And then I was just seeing if I could make these things look a little bit different than my native dashboard. And this is just an environment kind of thing. I know y'all are used to seeing my main dashboard whenever I fire these streams up. That is always here or still here. But I just wanted to kind of, play around with this other weather dashboard and highlight it a little bit. So it essentially is my my outside or my weather environment and temperatures and stuff like that. Interesting there. So let's see here. What we got here? Very wrong time for streams. Spaceship. Yep, that's what I said, Yusuf. I called that already. Now I will say that they were supposed to launch 90 minutes earlier, or at least start 90 minutes earlier, but they had some sort of weather delay at the launch site in New Mexico. And by the way, for those that don't know, let me just show you this little tidbit of trivia. This is just trivia. Spaceport, and I will show you this thing here. And hopefully, again, YouTube doesn't get mad at me for putting content. This is where they're launching from, Spaceport America, which is out in, and it's got that kind of horseshoe looking thing. Anyway, they have it out there, and there's a runway here. I guess they're launching from this runway. And Richard Branson's going to go up in the sky, along with some other folks. Anyway, I grew up, this is out in the desert, kind of west of where I grew up. But I grew up over here in this little town called Truth or Consequences, New Mexico. Right here. Yep, that's a real town. You can see it on the map. And I would take runs out here all the time to do different things. But Spaceport is actually from my hometown, just right out here. So I thought that was really cool. And now they're going to do their little launch thing from this little Spaceport thing this morning. And yeah, Yusuf, you are really, not only are you missing the live stream for the thing, or you might be double watching, I don't know. And also you're getting ready for a shift at the hospital. That's dedication there. I appreciate you being on, by the way. I was just talking about live streams and fitting those in with my work, my family schedule and whatnot. And so today's the best time that I could get one in. So Jeff's working on DigiUnos and DigiDeca. So Quindor needs to update his code. Deca is not working anymore. Quindor is on top of things, so I'm suspecting that he will get going on that stuff if there's an issue with that. Today, Italy. Oh, so yeah, so basically I really messed up with today's stream. So we got football, soccer. We have, I'm sorry, we have soccer, football. We have a launch. We have the Wimbledon men's championship going on right now. And my stream, and I still have some folks on here. So thanks for showing up. You can record all the rest of that stuff. Mine's more important, right? I wish I had like super amazing content today, but it may just be a shorter stream with less amazing content. Working on a 4-relay ESP12 baseboard. This is the fun stuff, right? This is the cool stuff to be able to play with. Let me bring my mouse thing up. I always forget about my mouse. You need to see the circle. I'd love to see stuff. And one of these days, Johnny, you and I need to get on a stream and just you show all the stuff that you're building. Anyway, so today I just wanted to go through and talk about, first of all, just kind of have a live stream. And primarily, again, as I've mentioned on these live streams before, I make videos to teach, to educate, to help. And those are the pre-recorded videos. The live streams are here hopefully for you all to ask me questions and me to answer them to the best of my ability and just kind of have a little conversation with a 30-second delay, unfortunately. So that's what this is for. So make sure you're asking the questions as we go along here, and that helps everyone learn and helps you get your questions answered and all that. So with that, let me let me just kind of go through, we're just going to kind of talk through this. Now, I'm not trying in any way to take away from the live stream that Home Assistant does when they do a release. So every release, the Home Assistant team goes in there and they actually have a live stream that talks in detail about a lot of these things. I don't always do the recap thing because they do such a good job of that. I mean, I think it's kind of duplication and kind of pointless in most cases. But again, I want to just kind of give you an opportunity to ask me questions. I wanted to go through a couple things here and just kind of talk through some of this. So this is now, of course, Core 2021.7, and I have updated both of my Raspberry Pi 4 and my my HA Blue. And the Raspberry Pi 4, by the way, yes, my Raspberry Pi is running an Nginx reverse proxy. And I'll tell you why I mentioned that here in a few minutes when we get to that. They added a new intern, or they added a new person who wrote this forecast solar stuff. So that's nice. Welcome to I try to pronounce people's names. Klaus Nicholas. I will go with that. And then of course, if you're new to Home Assistant and you haven't gone to a watch party where they release a new thing, a new version, they highlight everything that they talk about in the actual web page under homeassistant.io, and then you just click through the links. And they highlight, or they index it very nicely, so you have what's new and some other stuff on here and all that jazz. So let's see here. Let me just jump in here real fast. I made it a little harder, can only use components I already have in stock. So Johnny, are you seeing any kind of availability, the pressure on availability of parts get better? Are we seeing things come back supply chain wise? Because I know that was a big issue that we were having. Uh-oh. Bearded Tinker does a recap. Well, I bet his recap's probably better than mine today. To be totally honest, which I am most of the time, all the time with y'all, I didn't do a lot of prep for this one just because I ran out of time. Had a lot of stuff going on last week. Anyway, so yeah, this isn't going to be the all-inclusive recap, but I know people do that. So Johnny says, no, the supply chain is still just as bad. You know, it's funny how they have vehicles sitting on lots, dealership lots here in the United States that don't have chips in them, or some of the if you buy a vehicle that has a bunch of fancy extra features like heated seats and, you know, moving automatic stuff and all that, the chips for those aren't installed when the vehicle gets to the dealership lot. So I don't know how they're dealing with that, but it's interesting that we can't get the chips still. And, you know, silicone is a big issue and all of that. So Johnny makes really cool custom stuff. And like he says here, he's just going to try to build it with stuff he has in stock. He makes the PCBs. I hope I'm getting you not confused with somebody else, Johnny. I think I'm right. Just installed Ice Tower cooler yesterday. Let's look at that Ice Tower cooler. One of the other things I like to do on the live streams is when y'all tell me something, I like to see what it is that you're talking about. Gee, many Christmas. Yeah, no. What cooler do I use? I actually have no cooler on my Raspberry Pi 4. And before you flame me for that or whatever, shame me for that, I will show you. That's nice. I mean, that's like, I'd be curious what your temperatures are on that. But if I look at my Raspberry Pi right now, it's probably so hot it won't load. You watch. There it goes. My CPU temperature hovers about 170, and I don't have a picture to show you. I wish I had my other camera hooked up right now. But what I do have is I have it's sitting on my desk, and it has a external drive. It's sandwiched between the external drive and really it's just sitting on top of that drive. So there's heat coming from the external drive, the USB drive, that it's sitting on top of, and it's also still doing that. See, now this is interesting. I have been having an issue the last couple of days with this, and I don't really understand what it's doing here, but it's pretty darn slow. I've had some pretty big issues with this loading on my Pi. I'm not doing anything crazy or different that I usually do on it, but it definitely is running into some issues, and so I need to investigate that. I may have a problem with this. I am running data control, DATACTL, to put all of my writable data, like the stuff that writes all the time and does things. I'm putting that on the SSD or the external USB drive. So I wonder if there's an issue going on with that. Well, that's disappointing, but it does run about 170 all the time. And maybe that's a problem. Maybe that's a heat issue that it's causing. But yeah, you're right. I see Johnny said that it's overkill for that drive. But I don't have any fan, and maybe a little bit of fan would help. And the reason why I don't have the fan is it's noisy, and it's sitting on my desk here. But maybe it's time. 60s to 40s. 60s was with 9-layer acrylic case. So let's do the math on this. 116, or let's do 170 F2C. Okay, so I'm running about 76. How's that for a temperature? 76 degrees Celsius on that Raspberry Pi. And see, it may be totally heat related that it's doing this for whatever reason. My garage door's open. You probably heard all those alerts. Anyway, that was a long story for that. Okay, so yeah, 60 degrees, 9 layers of acrylic case. So does that cooler sit inside a case? It doesn't look like it sits inside of a case very well. How do you cover the whole board up? I mean, it just looks like it's wide open on there. All right, that's interesting. Well, I may have to put a fan back on mine to see if that helps things work better. Because what that device does do is it's my secondary DNS server, so it's running AdGuard, and also it's running my Nginx reverse proxy. So things like, well, I have things that hit that deal and then go to other stuff in my network, and if that fails, then I have issues with it. I did have this thing auto restart. I did have this thing restart the other day after something. I'm not really sure. Let's see, now I have, it may be this thing too, this chart thing. Let's look at, if I can get the supervisor, I can look at my CPU processor. Yeah. Well, that's going to have to be investigated. Another note while I'm talking about things like this happening, yeah, it's live stream and whatever, but this is real life, right? You may end up in a situation where you've got to troubleshoot something going on with one of your devices. And right now, the thing seems to work okay. AdGuard's working, the reverse proxy's working. Just the UI is having some sort of weird interface issue, and I don't really know what it's doing. So we'll reboot that later or something, but not right now. Okay, so back to this stuff. This new entity select is not something that is going to be directly used by y'all, just because it's designed for integrations to allow you to select a thing. So when you're doing when you can now give somebody an option, if you're an integration builder, you can give somebody an option to select something in the integration rather than not. It's a select entity. It's not the same as it's not the same, or it's input select, right? So it's the same as input select. I don't suspect that unless you're building integrations, you're going to see a lot of this, but however, you will see integrations that use this. And right now, MQTT, KNX, and WLED all use this to provide controls when you're setting user presets and stuff like that. And this Rituals Perfume Genie, you can change the room size. I've never heard of that thing. I guess that makes the house, your room smell nice. But when you read these things, you go through and you learn about products that exist that you may have never heard of before. Perfume Genie. I don't know what that is, but this just goes to show you how much stuff is integrated with Home Assistant. Oh, that's fancy. Maybe that's very fancy. Oops. Well, their website's broken, but anyway, that's a very fancy looking perfume diffuser. Can't be used wirelessly. All right. You can control your thing. Okay, well, that's interesting. I guess you can control that through Home Assistant. Let's see. Trigger conditions and trigger IDs. This is an interesting one here. I played with this a little bit. So here's a practical example, right? Let's say I'm going to just build this real fast. I'm going to add an automation. And what this does is this allows you to assign, let me go back and read it. It allows you to assign an ID to or trigger ID to a thing, to an event. And then you can reference that trigger ID later on in your automations to do something. And I was just totally messing with something here. And so let's just say south gate open for 10 minutes or something, or left open. Let's just say left open. And this is an automation that will let me know when the south gate was left open. So under this, I'm going to say event or state, trigger ID. I'm going to call it south gate left open a long time. Actually, I'm going to do two things. South gate is open is one alert or one thing, just for sake of whatever. So south gate status is going to go to on. And I'm going to leave this just on by itself for nothing else. And you don't need two of these things, but I'm just demonstrating a point here. I'm going to add a second trigger. Same thing. I'm going to call it a state. I'm going to call it trigger ID is south gate open 10 minute or something like that. And the entity again is south gate status and to on. And y'all can scream at me in chat when I'm doing this wrong, because I haven't actually done this in real life yet. I was playing with it this morning before the stream to see what it did. Now what I want to do under here is I want to wait for trigger. Not wait for trigger. I want to do, I did this earlier and I said, I'm going to forget how this works. Condition. And it's going to be a trigger. And then the trigger ID is Southgate open 10 minutes. And then the action for that is going to be, I'm going to call a service, notify, just to tell me, and I'm going to just notify my phone app. And I'll say gate open long time. And again, title, gate open long time, just whatever, just, you can customize this to your heart's desire. So you could actually have this particular action occur if the gate is open for 10 minutes, which would be this trigger ID. Now, if you just want it initially to notify you, here's the thing you can do on this one, right? So this would go to my phone, but let's say I want to do something different based on the other trigger. So when the gate is initially opened, I want to call a service, but I want it to be, oops, I don't want to call a service. I want to condition. And I want to wait for a trigger ID. Gosh, my thing doesn't. Trigger ID is Southgate open. Now on this action, I could actually do something different. So I could still do a notify or whatever, call service. If you really want to get crazy, you can make a light come on or something if the gate's open. So I could even do switch turn on or something, right? And I would just pick an entity just randomly. I'll do this for the sake of this. Turn the light on. And now what will happen is that when the trigger ID of Southgate open, which is just the initial gate opening, it goes to on when the gate's open. And this one I need to set for 10 minutes. So 0000 10 minutes. Goes to on for 10 minutes. This 10-minute trigger will fire. then I can do two different things. I can be notified on my phone that the gate was left open, and coming down here, it's backwards. I know I did it backwards, but when it's initially open, I can just have a light or something happen. I could even have a different type of notification going to my smart speakers, or, you know, pushover would have a different notification. And then I want my phone app to be notified. Or if you have multiple people in your house with the app, you could set this to notify everybody when the gate's left open for 10 minutes. So someone can go close it. And you only want to be notified yourself when the gate's open initially. So there's a way to deal with that now with the trigger ID. So that is kind of cool. So they added that, and that's fun. And if you save it, you know, then it's there. And if you want to look at it in the YAML version, this is kind of what it looks like YAML-wise. But now you apply your imagination to this, and you build these automations to do this stuff based on what actual trigger occurred within your automations based on the ID. That's a very simplistic example, by the way. So I'm going to turn this off. I don't want that happening because I already have a south gate going and running. So there's that. It's back down to normal. Let's check the comments, see what's going on in the comments. Let's see here. So I might throttle. Yeah, so I did it ever load the... Oh, it did. Let's look and see what my CPU is doing. And now we're going to wait. So we'll come back to that. So, yep, the Raspberry Pi will throttle when it gets too hot. So it's possible that it's actually throttling. I need to put the fan in there. I need to just put the fan back in and deal with the noise. I thought I had the fan in the thing here. I do not have the fan. Somewhere in one of my project boxes, I have the fan. I did a custom solution, used some layers of acrylic case with ice tower cooler. Oh, cool. Yeah, these the Raspberry Pi cases can get pretty fancy. To prevent overheating, all Raspberry Pi boards begin throttle the processor when the temperature reaches 80, and even further when it reaches 85. Good afternoon, Schizophonic 12. Welcome. Paul, welcome. If anybody sees anything major happening, if you're double watching that other thing, the Virgin Galactic thing, and something crazy happens, let me know. I guess I could put it up on the other screen as well, but it's distracting. So I'm not reaching that throttling deal, but it still must be doing that. Like I can't even get this stuff to load at the moment because it's too it is too slow. But that's okay. We're not playing on that one today. All right. What else? So that's the trigger stuff. And I guess they're up in the air right now. It looks like they're flying. So that's cool. For those that are watching the astronaut deal or the Virgin Galactic thing, that is currently happening. Just slap a heatsink on it. Should help to get below throttling state. So we'll be faster with a shell. So Johnny, I have the default heatsink on it. Is that not the one that we should be using? I guess it probably need a little bit more than that. But 169 is really only 76. So it may still be doing something here. The other question I have, by the way, while I'm just looking at this stuff, let me jump into my supervisor here and just look at the state of the drive. I asked this in Discord the other day, and no one really had an answer for me. But on my Home Assistant Blue, my Odroid N2 Plus, my use space every once in a while will go, see it's at 32% right now. Every once in a while, it will jump up to 99 or 100% for no reason at all. Then I start getting warnings in my logs here saying that there's a problem with that. And then I have to reboot the host, and then everything drops back down again. And I think it's a temporary file of some sort. So what I try to do, and Zappy told me about this, and you know I've done this before. When I go into the SSH port, I need to get into SSH on the host system, and I just can't make it work. I've tried a dozen different ways to create the file on a USB stick. I come in here and I do an import from USB. And when I do that, it says that it reads the config and does something. But then when I try to SSH to the device, it will tell me that it doesn't get the key, or what is it? What does it say? Let's open that one. Oh, now I'm getting a network refused. So anyway, it doesn't work for whatever reason. But I was just curious if anybody has ever seen this, where this fills up to max and then rebooting the system just brings it back down. It's got to be a file handle that's stuck. My guess is, and I'm from Linux land, right? So if you delete a file that's opened by something else, it doesn't release that space until you either shut down the process that's using that file, or in the same thing happens if you reboot it, it'll shut down all the processes. I'm guessing it's doing something to hold a file pointer open that's full, and then when you reboot it, it clears that up. So I'm just curious if anyone's ever seen anything like that. All right, so let's see. Just slap a heat sink on it. Did you Schizophonic? Did you mention that this morning? Were you the one that asked about that Z-Wave issue this morning? Yes, you were. Okay, awesome. Just slap a heat sink. Okay, probably stuff in the temp folder. Yeah, and I don't know how to. I need to get in the host system, and I can't seem to get into the host system. It won't let me SSH to it. Debate is still on the fan versus heatsink. Some Raspberry Pi owners think only a heatsink is enough. Others say no fans are enough. Heatsink and fan gets best result. Now, obviously, if you blow air on something, it's going to cool it, right? So a fan is helpful. I guess the debate would be, do you really need it? It's a part that can fail, and I think it also depends on the environment that you put it in. Up in my attic, I have a fan on one of my Raspberry Pi 3s, but I have no fan on a couple of the other ones, and it gets up to 120 in the attic, and so I don't have any issues with that. But this one sitting here might be a little more, might be doing a little bit more work. I might need a fan on it. Yeah, and so there's the debate, right? And it could be swap. It could be swap when you reboot it. I need to get into SSH. I'm a Linux sysad, right? I've spent years troubleshooting Linux servers and stuff like that, and I know how to go through the steps. For whatever reason, though, I just can't get SSH access to the host system, and I'm going to try a different USB drive. The one I have may have a problem where it can't read it. You've got to create the SSH keys, put them on the drive, put the drive in the Odroid, and then tell it to import the key using import from USB, and then you should be able to SSH to it, and it just doesn't seem to work. Let's see. So let's see if we can help Schizophonic fix the Z-Wave module issue. So there's a couple of things I'm going to say first with that. Number one, you mentioned, and this was in Discord, you mentioned that the tried the scan and doesn't think it's fully connected, showing unknown manufacturer. Now this might actually occur if it doesn't. I don't know what this means. I don't know what this, if there's something that's mentions there. The network key. So a couple questions first. Do you have the network key set? I'm assuming you do. Has that lock ever been installed under any other hub? If it has, and maybe you said that already. Yeah, I don't know if it was installed. If it was installed on another hub, you're going to have to completely remove it from the other hub for it to work. Some of these locks require you to be within 2 to 3 feet of the lock to actually get it to associate to the hub, which sucks, but it's a double-edged sword, right? It prevents somebody from sitting out on your street and reassociating or associating to your lock and taking it over. You've got to be right next to it. So those are some things to try first. So it's a brand new lock. Okay, good. That's not an issue. But you do need to make sure that you are really close to the lock when you try to associate. So that's my next question. And what did you say it was? Yale Connexus Smart Lock. So I'll do my my quick little Google search for this. 2018. Blah, blah, blah. I'm reading really fast. Okay. No, this is so old. I mean, this doesn't apply to like some of the newer stuff that we're doing now. Yeah, so I guess let's see. I'm curious whether or not you have been real close to the lock. So what? That's a confusing name. What? Takes me like 10 times to get any Z-Wave to pair. I have not had that issue. As long as you follow along with the manufacturer's suggestions on how you actually pair these things. There's another issue too. If you don't have enough devices in your network to create a solid mesh network, and you try to pair something way, way off from something else, you may have an issue trying to get it to pair. It may not see it. If you have a portable battery device issue, my suggestion is always to kind of pair that before you put it in its final resting spot, closer to the device, closer to the hub, so that it can see it better. Once it's paired, even if you go out of range and it comes back, it'll know what it is, but it's that initial pairing it needs to do correctly for it to work right. I have a couple dozen Z-Wave devices around the house or more. I don't remember exactly how many. Actually, I have 28. If I look at my integrations, I have 28 devices or so, or nodes. So it's got enough to pair, and most of mine are plugged in. They're either wall paddle switches or plugged-in switches. I have a few battery-powered devices, but all of those that are plugged in act as repeaters as well, and basically just make my mesh network work really well. So I don't have a lot of those issues, but Z-Wave can be tricky if you don't have good coverage or you have interference of some other sort in your environment. All right, so I know we're supposed to be talking about this stuff here, but questions are good. Keep the questions coming. I like the questions. I think that you get more out of the questions than me rehashing the things here. So trigger conditions, trigger IDs, we talked about that. Script debugging, this is kind of cool. You can now go into your scripts and you can look at your, oops, wrong button, stop. Scripts, C, it never lets me do that. All right, configuration, back to scripts. And you can start debugging your scripts. So if I want to look at, what does that do? So now you can actually look at your script debugging, kind of like you could for your other stuff. And it tells you all the stuff, the path it took to run the script, logbook entries, and the script config. So I can get all of the change variables, the logbook entries again, step config. So now you can go through and you can actually step through. I can start here and I can step through all of the stuff that occurred in this particular script. And you can see in this one, I actually run a number of different things under the script. So it has 7 different items that runs through. And you can go through the trace timeline as well and look at all the stuff that ran and how long it took to run these things, which is kind of cool. So they've added script debugging just like they've done automation debugging. So you can go through and have a visual representation of what occurred in your scripts, which is really kind of neat. And if you have a diverging path, it'll show you the path it took to get to what it was doing. So that's cool. I like that. Let's see here. Follow along every time heck Z-Wave was pairing it unsecure despite clicking secure inclusion. I wonder if that's a bug or something. Is it a specific device that you're having an issue with, or just anything in general? And for schizophrenic 12, I'm using Aeotec Gen5 with a Pi 4 and using the workaround with an unpowered USB hub. What is the workaround with an unpowered USB hub? So I've never done that, but I do have the Aeotec Gen 5, and I have two Quickset 910 locks, which are actually older locks. In fact, trying to think here, I had those paired with a Vera device. I completely unpaired those from the Vera device, and then I paired them with the Aeotec, and I was worried that I would have an issue. I was also worried that I would have an issue because they are secure devices, that I would have an issue pairing those when I was moving from built-in Z-Wave to Open Z-Wave Beta to Z-Wave JS. I didn't have issues at all on any of that stuff as long as my network key and everything was correct, which it was. So I don't know what the workaround is. That's interesting. What does that mean? Do you have like a link or something that talks about that? But I did get, when I first paired these things, I was within a foot of the lock. I mean, I was right up on the lock. And I'm assuming that's what you mean here is you're doing something here to get it closer. Unpowered USB hub, but you need power. So I'm curious. Tell me more about this so I can look into that. It's your first Z-Wave device, so definitely make sure you're super close to it. So what says it was my Quickset 916 that was doing most, but Z-Wave device seemed to take a few attempts. Still trying to get my Dome mouser hooked up right now. I heard other people say that Gen 5 stick won't connect to the Pi 4 due to the USB port's not communicating correct. Okay, well, maybe. I mean, I'm not running it on a Pi 4. I'm running my Gen 5 on the Odroid. I also ran it on a what's that thing? A Lenovo tower, desktop tower. I ran it using Ubuntu. So I ran it on both of those and didn't have any problems with it. I've not tried the Pi 4 itself, but I did run a different USB stick on the Pi 4. I didn't try a lock with it, but I did do something else with it and it didn't have any problems. I have this S2 stick that's on the Pi 4 and I don't have any issues with the USB ports. I don't know how are you able to do that on an unpowered USB port? That's interesting because the Gen 5 stick needs power, right? Oh, you mean unpowered? Yeah. Gen 5 stick won't connect to the Pi 4 due to USB ports not communicating correctly. Interesting. Aeotec Gen 5. So here, I guess that's what you're talking about. The reason this hardware, the D plus is pulled up to 5 volts and plugged in. The Pi 4 can't handle this and rejects the stick. One method is to use so I didn't know that. So there's 4 versions of this stick. So how do I know which one I'm sure I'm running on older version because I bought this stick like 4 years ago or something, 3 years ago. The second one has a Z-Wave library. Okay, so I don't know which one I'm sure it's older one. Let's see. So that being said, it sounds like, yeah, there's some sort of issue here. And there's a lot of discussion, which I won't go into detail. I guess you can take it apart and solder a wire. Wow. That's really unfortunate. Okay, well, it sounds like there's an issue with that, but I need to read more into that and see what that is. But it sounds like you're on the right track for doing a workaround. But are you getting close to the lock? I guess is my next question. Schizophrenic. Are you next to the lock, like within a foot when you're trying to do the pairing? And in that case, the lock is probably one of the more difficult items to try to pair, especially since it's a secure device. Do you have any other devices you can try that aren't the lock to make sure that Gen 5 stick is working? because I think you're trying to troubleshoot something that may be either an issue with the lock itself or this whole thing. Just I would try something else that's not a secure device. Also, I don't know which thing you're using for. I don't want to look at this. This thing never this thing never loaded. Mostly the log isn't loading. That almost looks like a drive issue. So if you look at your add-ons and look at the Z-Wave JS log configuration add-on, supervisor add-ons. I'm not sure what you're running specifically. Are you running the Z-Wave JS MQTT or are you running the Z-Wave other one? But either way, one of these things is going to have logs. And you should see some node activity in your log if you're set to info, which I probably need to set that to debug so that it doesn't actually fill my log up. You should see some activity here when it's trying to associate if it's actually doing anything at all. So some stuff to look at. Make sure you're super close. Yeah, this for sure. You need to make sure you're super close to the lock. And then just try something else. If you have another device, buy a cheap anything Z-Wave and see if you can get it to work. Yeah, so you can look at the logs here and see if it's even doing anything at all with that. Let's see here. All right, so there's that. Z-Wave can be Z-Wave. I find is for some folks it's a pain in the butt, and for other people it just works. In my case, I've just had it work reliably for years on multiple platforms. So that's I mean, for the most stuff, and even I even have stuff outside on gates that's designed for inside the house, and it's still working. All right, so let me keep going through this real quick. Small, possibly helpful change. This doesn't really do much. You can reference other entities for above and below. An example that Frank uses here is you can have something happen if the outside temperature, in this case, is above the inside temperature. So you can take these entities and reference other entities using these above, I'm sure above, below, or whatever, equal to. So you have the option to do something there. They say a small but possibly helpful. I mean, yeah, I guess it would be considered small because there's other ways you can do that. But it's kind of nice, right? You could do something to say, you know, if the sun is above a certain angle, do something or other with a light or whatever. That's interesting. This is a date thing, and dates are hard. I wrote some software that tracks people's work shifts, and it's global in nature. And one of the hardest things I ever did or have done or had to mess with is time zones and and just time in general and calculating all that. And of course, that's what they say here. It's never going to go, it's never not going to be hard. But they did add what did they do here? It's converting the state of a sensor to a text or date time. So now you can actually convert using the method as date time. So you can say sensor driver's license. In this case, I don't know why he uses driver's license. It's interesting. Is date time minus now. And so you can convert it using that as date time thing. I don't know how many people actually will do that on here, but you can do that. Let's see here. What else do we have? Check my comments here. I'm struggling with the concept of the network key. Okay, so the network key. How do I show you the network key without showing you the network key? 6 minutes out for the Virgin launch. So those of you that are watching it, I don't think I can put that on here, nor would that. I mean, this isn't the. I know a lot of people restream Virgin stuff or space launches in general. I don't do that because there's too many other people doing it. But I have it on another screen over here, just kind of watching. By the way, I didn't realize how much space there was inside that little rocket thing that's hanging off the wing. They've got 6 people sitting in there, and it looks pretty roomy. I wonder if these guys are nervous. I mean, this is, I think, only the second or third flight with people on it. So anyway, if you're watching both streams, excellent. Thank you for being here. I appreciate that. I told earlier in the stream, I only have a certain amount of time to do the live streams, and so I knew I was competing with Wimbledon and the launch of the Virgin Galactic and the soccer/football games that are going on and all kinds of other stuff. Okay, well, network key. We're talking about network key. So Z-Wave JS to MQTT network key. So the network key is a random set of characters that you put in that basically allows your devices to know that this is the right device that it's talking to. And I think it might encrypt it too. And I'm trying to, that was the wrong search. Ator. Well, that's not helpful. Hey, look, there's my videos. Network key generator. So the one thing that's different about the network key generator, and I'm going the wrong way here. Network key. Let me find the word network key. A network key is automatically generated for you. If this Z-Wave stick has already paired with secure devices, you need to enter the previously used key. If you do not run blah, 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 advanced installation. So the network key, and I'm not sure, Schizo, what you're asking about exactly, but you need a network key in order to connect to secure devices. So things like door locks, garage door openers, and probably some other stuff require secure installation for all of their, or secure association. I think maybe that's even not the right word, for all of their features to work. You might be able to read some values from some of those devices, but you can't control them. You can't unlock or lock, open or close, or anything like that, unless you use the secure nodes portion of that or add it as a secure node. So the network key is required for you to be able to add that as a secure node. And let me try to pull up, if my other device were working like it's supposed to, I could probably show you this without compromising my security. In fact, I think I uninstalled Z-Wave anyway. Yeah. By the way, my other device is now working just fine. Super fast. Don't know why. So the network key does that, right? That's what it's for. You can generate any kind of just random characters for the network key. The difference between original Z-Wave and Z-Wave JS is the network key, or Z-Wave JS MQTT is a network key type. However, if you're, gosh, let me see if I can figure out how to show this to you without compromising the security. Give me just a second here. I'm going to go into my device here and go into my Z-Wave JS dashboard. When you're when you're selecting under settings, when you're selecting the device, the USB device, then you need to insert the network key. Yeah. So let me just copy that. I won't save it. And I'll put it somewhere where it won't be visible to y'all, and then we could do something with it here. And while I'm doing this, Schizo, ask me a specific question about the key and what maybe you don't understand. And then we can talk about that specifically. All right, so now if we look at this, right? So we have you select a device, which I'm sure you've already done. Then you add the network key. It's got to be 32 characters in length. And in Z-Wave JS.MQTT, the network key can be a random set of characters, only hex characters, A, B, C, D, E, F, I think, and then 1, 2, 3, 1 through 9, or 0 through 9, or whatever. You can do network key generator, maybe. MQ or Z-Wave JS. I keep coming back here. Why does it not let me? Where in the world is my network key generator? We'll just pick some random person here. Well, anyway, it's 32 characters, and I don't want to go. I mean, I don't need to spend an hour on the network key, but I'm curious what specifically you're having an issue with the key, or what you don't understand. But you just put the key in here, and then when you try to do an add node, you would add node secure, and it's going to reference the key here. Now, this key is going to be associated with the devices, so you can't move those devices to another Z-Wave hub with a different security key, or it will fail to work. I don't know if that makes sense or if that's helpful or not. But again, ask me some specific questions about that, and I will try to answer them. Okay, now you're doing this. I've got it generated via the Z-Wave JS control panel, but I'm not sure if there are any other steps involved to get my lock to use that key. No, because you have to add node secure. If you add node secure, it's going to use the key, as long as it's not hasn't been previously associated with that, which is the case. Did they launch? They're floating around up there. It looks like in the cabin. Looks like the Virgin Galactic guys are floating around in their little spaceship thingy. And let me go back over to here in my Z-Wave JS stuff. Info. Okay, maybe not. Z-Wave JS, open the web UI. And when you add and they keep changing this interface, it's different every time. So you can add remove device. You want to do a secure inclusion. This is what you need to do for your lock. And then when you do that, it will actually reference that code or that network key that you put in there, right? And so this is how you do it. So secure inclusion for anything like door locks or garage doors or things like that. And then inclusion would be just standard stuff. So that's how you do it in Z-Wave JS MQTT. Okay. Series version for Docker containers. You can do that now. That's nice if you're running a non-standard installation. Other noteworthy changes. There's this Z-Wave stuff got changed. Z-Wave JS ping is available. I tried to use this because what I wanted to try to do was to have me get notified whenever there was no response from a Z-Wave device, but I don't think that's what I'm thinking. Ping as an IP ping. I don't think it's the same thing, although I'm still playing with that. There's a heal network button on the Z-Wave JS configuration panel. If you're using Z-Wave JS built in, not the other add-on, you can now reconfigure the Z-Wave JS configuration, or the server can be reconfigured from the panel, and the logs can now be downloaded. That's dependent on the type of Z-Wave install you have, Z-Wave JS MQTT or stock or whatever. Google Assistant has support for fan speed changes and preset modes. And then there's a preset mode for this other device as well. Philips TV stuff, Yamaha music cast. If you use Climacell, you get a whole bunch of new sensors. For those that are using WLED, Dr. Z's is the expert on that, but it supports local push. Xiaomi devices. Now this is interesting. I have a few of these Xiaomi. I know I'm saying it wrong, and I know I'm going to get trolled for that, but Xiaomi, someone tried to pronounce it for me, and I forgot what it was. It's gotten way easier. No need to do difficult things to get the tokens. The Home Assistant can now extract the tokens from a cloud account. Okay. If you're using those, I guess Xiaomi has a bunch of different products. I'm thinking of the temperature sensors where I flash the firmware on there to bypass the need for the tokens. You don't need to do that anymore either, by the way. You can use the stock stuff and just put the token in. More updates for those devices. I guess that's controlling other things besides the temperature sensors. Let's see. I don't know what Tibber is. I haven't used that. Google Translate TTS now supports Bulgarian for those that need that. That's awesome. Smart Tube reminders can be reset. Lots of updates for KNX. XY color lights. Auto Winner added support for presets, custom presets, and fan modes. In ESP Home, Nuki now has a service to enable or disable continuous mode. Some of this doesn't mean anything to me because I don't have these. So if you're sitting here listening to me talk and you're like, what is that? Join the club. I don't know. The Home Assistant login page now better support password manager. Okay. I stay logged in for the most part all the time. I don't ever notice anything with that, but I do use Bitwarden as a password manager. So if that's the case, then that's awesome. I'm not sure what it means, but that's awesome. And then we have a few new integrations. Ambi Forecast Solar is that new one that intern built. It allows you to forecast the amount of solar you're going to get for your solar panel system. So you can kind of get an example of how much power you're going to generate for the day or whatever. That's interesting if you have solar panels. I'd love to have solar panels, but that's a capital expense that I'm not prepared to put on my house at this point. My neighbor has it, but I don't. Freedom Pro, don't know what that is, but it's there. Modern Forms and Select, which is a new thing we talked about. And then, of course, new platforms. Fritzbox Tools, Bosch for sensors. Groups now supports media players. So you can put your media players into a group if you want to do that. Hyperion provides a camera feed with a live image. And of course, we talked about KNX adding a number of new entities. Meteoclimatic has sensors for weather. And we can just go on and on and on here. For those of the Sony Bravia, now you have a remote control. And then WLED exposes color palettes and presets using select entities, which is that select dropdown we talked about. So that's the stuff there for new integrations or new platforms. And then integrations now that go to the UI versus the YAML code, Coinbase, DSMR, and Yamaha MusicCast. Now we're already on version. Is there another one here? No, we're on 2021.7.1. Which fixes some issues that came up in the initial release, which is always the case. They'll do their initial release and then they'll go in and add fixes throughout the month. So that's just the standard way that Home Assistant does their development cycle and update cycle. So all these things you can read through. Now, here's a couple things that I want to talk about. I always like to stress the breaking changes because the breaking changes will break your stuff if you if this applies to you. Now, the very first one we'll talk about in a minute, but I see some chats. Let me go through those. So does your Ecowit integration work? So here's what I did with Ecowit. I actually went into, that's the wrong thing. I cheated on my Ecowit. I went into the files. I forget where the files were on here. Somewhere on here, I put in, I forget where, but there's a everything, all the integrations, integrations, I think it is, require a manifest file. You have to have a manifest file with a version or something in there for it to work. That's been a long thing that was a warning on. And then in 2021. I think it was 6. They actually made that mandatory. And if you didn't have the manifest file, it just wouldn't load your integration anymore. And so I went in here and I don't even know where it is now. Somewhere in here is the Ecowit stuff. I added a manifest file and put a fake version in it. And I did that just so I could get my Ecowit stuff to work. Because for me, if you'll notice here, my weather data, I store a lot of weather data, especially when it rains. I want to know how much rain we've had. By the way, check this out. 7.6 inches in Central Texas this month. The week reset yesterday or today, and we've had about 7 inches this week, 28 inches for the year. So we're well above our norms here. We had 10 inches one morning on Tuesday morning in one fell swoop in some of the areas around here. I digress. Anyway, to answer your question, Zappy, I had to reinstalling it probably would have updated that manifest file as well, or doing an update once they did that. But Ecowit was one of the integrations that failed because it didn't have a manifest file, and when people upgraded to I think again it was 2021.6. It actually broke a lot of those integrations because they didn't have the manifest files. All right, so that's that one fixed. Fixed it. My brother's runs Ecowit and his failed as well. So yes, it did have an issue. So I think the next task is to move my Pi and the USB stick close, like 3 feet from the lock, and try the secure inclusion. Yep, I agree with that. I'm going to start using Bitwarden to hold stuff like keys now. Losing Z-Wave key doesn't sound fun. Only use it for website passwords for now. So here's what I do with Bitwarden, and I have a video on that, so make sure you watch that if you're curious about Bitwarden, which is now Vault Warden, by the way. They changed the name to Vault Warden because they didn't want to be associated with Bitwarden, the open source version of Bitwarden. So anyway, it's Vault Warden. But I store my keys like this one. I store my one-time use codes because I have a lot of 2FA sites. And if I lose my YubiKey, I need to be able to get into those sites. And I do that. I can do that with the one-time use codes. So I store those in Vault Warden. So I use it for secure notes for a lot of different things, not just passwords. So Vault Warden is nice for that as well. I run it locally on my my HA stuff. So Carl, yep, make use of that. WLED update, that is neat. Yep, that is true. None of my Samsung TVs work in HA. They didn't discovered then nothing. I'm with you there. I've got 2 Samsung TVs, and it sees them, auto discovers them, and it says there's going to be a code on your screen. Go put the code in. Never does anything at all. I'd be happy to know if someone ever makes that work, but I use the Roku players, so I'm not too terribly concerned about it. However, when my kids don't behave and they won't turn off the TV, I'd love to go in there and be able to control the TV by just powering it off. Or if they leave it on by accident, they have auto power offs. But if I know we're leaving, I want my script to turn off the TVs and do all that other stuff as well. So that would be nice. So anyway, by the way, those following along, Branson is now on the ground. They landed, so nothing blew up. That's awesome. Same with the rain in Houston area. We needed it, not just so much so quickly. Yeah, I'm afraid now we're going to go into a dry spell and we're going to just burn up for the next month. So we did have a good week and a half of rain and no sun. Do you have any idea how to mount Music Blue Iris videos from a NAS into the media browser? Okay, so Raspberry says show us the Ecowit. Okay, let me try to find the Ecowit. Has Ecowit offered an upgrade for their stuff? I mean, it's pretty it's a pretty popular deal. I would think that they would have something. Let me try to find that file. Where are the, and I wonder if I went on, directly on the device when I did this. Where do they store all this? Oh, custom components. There it is, Ecowit. So I went into my file manager, I went into virtual Visual Studio Code, but you can also do it in File Manager, I believe, if you can get to this level in there. And I mapped this with Samba, so this drive H is mapped to my my Home Assistant drive. But then I went into custom components, Ecowit, and I created a file called manifest.json. And all I did in there, it had this stuff already, but what it didn't have was the version. You got to be very careful when you're modifying these files, because these files, if you do it wrong, you'll brick it, or not brick it. It won't work. So just make sure you do it right. And it's basically the formatting, right? I put a comma here at the end. I don't think it matters where you stick this thing. I just stuck it right above this code owner's block. Garbled one. And I put a comma here, and then I put in version in quotes, colon, and then I just made up this version because I'm hoping, and I made it very small, so 001, because hopefully if there is an update, it's going to see that 000 or 001 is really old, and it'll tell me there's a new update for this particular add-on or integration or whatever. I haven't seen an update for Ecowit actually. So all you need to do for any, really any device or any integration that says it can't load after you do an update because of this manifest issue, go in here and find the file or the add-on or custom component. If it doesn't have a manifest.json file, you have to create one. And all you need to do is put in the version, but you've got to follow YAML or JSON formatting with the open, close brackets, and then this stuff. If it has no manifest file at all, then you put in the version. But I'm assuming most of them have a manifest file. You just have to add the version to it. So there it is, right there. Just throw a version and make sure you make the number super low in case it sees it as an update or sees it as a low version and will force into an update. I'm surprised there's not an Ecowit version update. Zappy, I'm assuming then that you probably have a version that has the manifest file correct in it if it didn't work. Like you said, you reinstalled it. So I'm assuming that you mean, well, it has to have a manifest if it's going to be reinstalled. It has to have the version. So I'm not sure what that means. How to mount NAS files into media browser. You can add your NAS drive location and configuration YAML. You need to add it as a media directory. So what was the question? Who asked me? Do you have any idea how to mount Music Blue Iris videos from a NAS drive? Oh, excellent, Raspberry. I'm glad you found that or got it to work. I mean, I'd be dead in the water without my weather data. I mean, I'm a data guy. I like to collect that data. Let me talk about this real quick before people run out of time and have to jump. Using a reverse proxy with Home Assistant. This was probably the number one question that popped up that I saw after the update. And again, you have to read the breaking changes. I want to be on the latest and greatest Home Assistant, but I don't want to be on the latest and greatest Home Assistant until I have time to make sure that things are correct first. And I knew this was going to be a problem because I run a reverse proxy. And let me go back over to this now that it seems like it's loading. Look how fast that is. Isn't that amazing? By the way, here's my CPU temperature. Load it. You can load it. One of the other things that on this update, by the way, is there's some database changes and things. And those database changes could take a long time to update. And that could slow things down if you're doing an update. Now, I was trying to get the history, and it's going to be idiotic again. But if I go to File Manager, no, wait, what am I doing? Yeah, it's File Manager or File Editor on here. And it's probably going to be, oh, there we go. Oh, let me get this out of the way before it puts something bad up here. Look at my weather dashboard while you're waiting. If I can't load it here, I'll show you in the other one. But the point is, you have to use X-forwarded for and trusted proxies in your HTTP integration configuration for the reverse proxy stuff to work. And it talks about that in the documents here. You enable parsing of the X-forwarded for header, passing on the client's correct IP address in proxied setups. You must also whitelist trusted proxies using the trusted proxies setting for this to work. Non-whitelisted requests with this header will be considered IP spoofing attacks, and the header will therefore be ignored. Why is this happening? Because you can misconfigure your reverse proxy and turn it into a haven for people to abuse the device. And so what Home Assistant has done in this update is they forced you to make sure that you have this set correctly and not misconfigured. So whenever they see a misconfigured reverse proxy to prevent your proxy from becoming a repeater of bad things, they force you to do this. And that makes sense, right? You should have this set this way. And let me go back into Visual Studio Code because my other device is not working right again. And let me go to my configuration. I'll show you what I did in my setup. And I want to make sure that all my secret stuff doesn't show up on my live stream here. Wait for it. There it is. All right, I think that's okay. Okay, so what I've done is I created an HTTP section. You may or may not have this. It just depends on what you have set up already. You put your SSL certificate path and key. That was already there. And then I had to set use x forwarded for to true. And again, what that does is that, did I close the screen? No. That tells it to look at the header. And then it looks to see that these IP addresses are where this came from under trusted proxies. Now you'll notice in the example that they show this, this example, where is it? They show this IP address. If you're using the Home Assistant supervised, this is the IP address of the internal IP address on your device. So like the container address or whatever on your device. I left that in there, and I also specified my local network address, my local network IP range in the configuration. So trusted proxies coming from either of these two addresses will be allowed to go through. Everything else gets blocked and is considered a spoofing attack. So that was the number one issue that I saw coming up from the upgrade is the breaking changes for that, because that is definitely an issue with misconfigured proxies. Let's see here. Now I see your issue. Not sure if this works if the location is external. In my case, my NAS also hosts my HA. You may need to map the drive first in to your HA instance and then make it available. All right, so I haven't played with that. I do have a NAS with my Blue Iris stuff on it, but I don't have that mapped. But do you need to have Samba and stuff installed on your HA instance as well for that to work? I wonder. May have to look at that. Let's see. Has the HA Blue system been a lot better than your previous setup? I believe you're running on a RPi. Well, let me back up here. Blah, 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 blah. So Theslo, the Blue has been fantastic. And you can even look under the, aside from the drive issues that I was talking about earlier. Okay, let's get off of that. If I look at, I'm trying to get back to the main supervisor page. If you look here, the usage, core CPU usage is 6.9%, and the core RAM usage is 15.1%. And the RAM is almost non-existent usage-wise. I mean, well, with the supervisor, right? So really, you're looking at about 15%, 16, 17% usage. And then my use space is 32.5%. And I'm running Grafana. I'm running Node-RED. I'm running InfluxDB, storing all of my, I don't have excludes on my entities. So pretty much everything's going into Influx in the database. And so my use space currently is at 32.5%. I'm also using AdGuard, and I'm storing 30 days worth of lookup history on AdGuard. So I'm good there. I have to monitor the space a little bit. But the Blue, now what I was running before, I went from a Pi 3 to a Lenovo mini tower that was running Ubuntu, and I installed Home Assistant on Ubuntu. And I kept getting that dreaded, your system is in an unhealthy state. You can't install this because you're running unsupported version of blah, blah, blah. Well, Ubuntu that I was running on my tower PC was not a supported version or supported install. And so I was getting the unhealthy thing. Anyway, so when I went to the Blue, as far as everything goes, I've not noticed any issues at all. It's been rock solid. It just runs all the time. It's snappy. I mean, I don't really have any issues. I'm running, like when I load the dashboard, for example, I mean, that was it running on the Blue. It's just almost instantaneous loading up. All the automations run on time. So the Blue has been, and when I say Blue is it's a case put on an Odroid N2 Plus. So the Blue is a blue case printed with Home Assistant logo, but it really is an Odroid N2 Plus with certain, certain hardware in it. But you can buy that stock Odroid 2 Plus and just run it as well. So it works very well. I haven't had any issues at all with the Blue. And the number one thing is power consumption. That tower case, is about 1.5 feet tall or 2 feet tall, 1.5 feet. And it uses a lot of power because it's a PC with fans and everything else running it. The Blue has a passive heatsink, and it's just a little board. So when it comes down to backup power, I've got it plugged into UPS. It'll run tens of times longer than that other thing, and it generates a lot less heat and all that other stuff. So I'm very pleased with it. I highly recommend it. The Pi 4, which is the other, you're seeing what's happening with the Pi 4. I don't really understand what's going on with the Pi 4 right now, but my Pi 4 is having an issue. And it could be the drive it's on. It could be heat related. I need to put the fan back in there and see if it works better. So I know a lot of folks are running on the Pi 4. The reason I didn't want to run on the Pi 4 necessarily is I'm running the influx. I'm running all the other stuff that writes to the drive all the time. And I want the SSD that's in the Odroid to be the primary drive, and it works very well. Long answer, but it works really well for me. Maybe not better than, there's no noticeable difference between the tower PC I was running it on and this, other than the fact it's supported. It doesn't give me the errors with being an unsupported setup or an unhealthy state, and the power consumption is a lot less. So win-win all around. Let's see here. What conditional cards do you use? Conditional cards. Make one video about latest Blue Iris. Jagadish, what do you want me to make about the latest Blue Iris? By the way, I've been running Blue Iris for years. Love it. I know there's things you can run on Home Assistant Direct, like Frigate and those kinds of things. And although I want to play with those, Blue Iris, just for the cost, it's like $50 a year US, just to be able to, and basically it's for upgrades and stuff like that. And compared to NVR software or other stuff, it's just, in the configurability, it's just amazing. What conditional cards do I use? Conditional cards I use, I'm assuming you mean like this stuff. If I were to say conditional cards, I'm using the button card. Let's see here. Is it called a button card? Custom button card. Where's that at? Yep, I'm using custom button card, and then I have it do things based on criteria, states or values or whatever. So I'm using custom button cards on this dashboard. I'm using the gauge cards. They change colors based on the numeric value. These are custom button cards. They change colors based on state of the entity. Pretty much custom button card is my go-to card. Now, I was starting to play with these other ones. I wanted to see if I can make these look like the other ones. And these cards here are this is the second row down. These are all custom bar cards flipped horizontally. No, vertically. They're all vertically set, and those are custom button cards on there. So I use those. This is just a standard mini graph card. So those are the cards I use here. I'm actually going to try to make up a video on the dashboard stuff here, because I want to kind of, we've seen the same dashboard on my stuff for a long time, but I want to have a more specific, this includes everything that I want to look at all the time, but I want to have more drilled down specific dashboards as well. So I might work on that, do something with that. Let's see here. The Blue Iris AI. Okay, yeah, I'm using DeepStack for Blue Iris, in Blue Iris. So I may talk about that. I know there's some people have done some pretty good videos on the AI stuff. The thing about doing the Blue Iris is I got to figure out how to do that on a recording without giving away the keys to the kingdom or whatever. But you can see down here I'm running a couple cameras. So that's going to be, depending on your OS, using Samba can be a solution. What is the thing running 24/7? What are the thing that is running 24/7 in your home? Not sure what that means. Ask me that a different way. HA is an RPi with HAOS and Open Media Vault ext4 drive. Music shared, BSM. Okay, so you're all talking about that. All right, so I wanted to talk about what was good in here. Breaking changes, Python. So if you are running Docker images, or if you're running custom Docker containers, pay attention to Python and Alpine. If you're running the Home Assistant OS, you'll automatically get the update. But there is a thing with the ARM devices running 32-bit operating systems. It requires a Docker version to be at least 19.03.9. So that's for more advanced users that are running Docker. I know some of y'all are doing that. Some of these don't make much sense to me because I don't use them, but make sure you read through all of these breaking changes. Now here's the database stuff. When you upgrade, if you haven't already upgraded, the statistics table is not exposed or used by Home Assistant and is part of an alpha feature. It does exist. You might already want to check out or use it. Oh, this isn't what I was thinking it was. The content on this table is reset. It does not impact any state history, and the data is not used Home Assistant yet. I guess if you don't know what this means, you can ignore it. But if you do know what it means, make sure you pay attention to the statistics table because they are zeroing out the table or resetting it. Let's see. Just looking for any major stuff here. Modbus, I guess. Yeah, I don't know what that means. MQTT, it's no longer possible to set attributes defined in the base component via configured JSON attributes topic. So you can't accept brightness via this topic. It was unintended, should never have been there. They took it out, so it doesn't work anymore. So if you're using that, you'll need to fix that or do something different. OpenZWave no longer supports the white value attribute. You must use RGBW color. So those of you that are using those kind of lights, make sure you're using the RGBW color instead of white value. Prometheus is converting temperatures from in Fahrenheit to Celsius. You'll need to make adjustments for that if you're running Prometheus. Now, this is what I was talking about earlier, I think, or maybe not. If you're using anything in your database name with an ampersand in it, you'll have to convert that to %40, which is basically a URL encoded number, because this fixes a bug. Database connection strings are considered URLs, so special characters like this one have to be encoded. So %40 is URL encoded version of ampersand. So make sure if you're doing that, you fix that. And I think the only other one is zeroconf, which these are, I'm going through kind of the bigger things that might have more of an install base. So the IPv6 configuration option has been deprecated in favor of the settings provided by the network. And then you can go through and you can look at all these changes, and you can also read through some of this, the comments. There are some issues that have cropped up for some of the users. Just make sure that you read through all this if you have an issue or anything like that. But there's lots of comments, right? 390 something comments on this. In a nutshell, that's kind of what 2021.7. There's not a major hoo-hoo thingy. I think trigger ID is one of the biggest ones. The breaking changes for the HTTP proxy stuff is important to know about as well. So those are two big ones. How many PC that is running 24? Oh, in my house. How many devices am I running 24/7 in my house? Too many. So I did a network overview video a year or so ago, and maybe it's time for another one, but I haven't made much progress in cleaning up my network stuff, so I'm embarrassed to show it. I am running a Blue Iris PC that also doubles as the main house PC. I am running my work /studio / other PC that I run. It runs a Linux VM that does some stuff with Plane Finder and some other things. It doesn't have to be on all the time. So I could actually shut that one down. My Home Assistant Blue runs 24/7. My Raspberry Pi Home Assistant one runs 24/7. I've got ADS-B in the attic that receives 24/7 and feeds Flight Radar, Flight Aware, ADS-B Exchange, Plane Finder, And then my weather console thing. I have weather from Ecowit and Home Assistant, and then I have the ambient weather thing that feeds ambient weather. Those are the 24-hour things. So really, it's my cameras and my Home Assistant that are my primary 24/7 operation things. Let's go through any other comments here. The custom button card is probably one of the best cards you can use. I agree. I mean, there's just not what I was looking for on this dashboard, by the way, is looking here. I wanted to see if I just wanted to see if there are other cards I could make look nice and do interesting things. And there probably are, but I haven't got that much into it yet. Like this Apex card, Apex charts card. This was interesting. You can do a lot of stuff with Apex charts. But I just the ease of use and the ability to do things in Home Assistant with the custom button card are just, that's like the one-stop shop card for everything. But Apex charts allows you to do a lot of stuff. I just am starting to touch on the surface of that. I also run Grafana, and I don't know that anything kind of can build can hold a flame to Grafana's stuff. But if I wanted a native dashboard that shows some of the stuff in Grafana, I would use like these Apex charts potentially. So there's a lot of stuff you can do with these Apex charts that I'm playing around with. So that's what my quest for this thing is, to see if I can take a like one of my Grafana dashboards and convert it into something that I can pull up in Home Assistant natively and see how that looks. So let's see. Now free to listen to the stream. Yeah, unfortunately, we're going to be wrapping up pretty soon as well on the stream. So get your questions in. Get your questions in now. Make sure I didn't miss anything else here. I think it's interesting, and I think this is going to be my next video idea. So Carl, or who asked the question? Is it Carl that asked? Who asked me this? Oh, Paul. So what is the use case for having that stuff in Home Assistant? I'm curious what you're trying to do with like Blue Iris or whatever, mapping that and viewing that in Home Assistant. Because I never considered that. I wonder what that would do, because what I'm doing obviously is I can go into my main and actually I have another camera here. This is the what is this called? This is a surveillance card. So I have a surveillance card that runs my cameras, or allows me to view all of my cameras kind of in a surveillance mode. So I can click on these cameras here and bring up different cameras. Maybe, yeah. So I can just kind of go back and forth with the cameras and bring up different things, and it'll put those cameras, you can rotate, I think, and other stuff. But I use a surveillance card, and so I'm curious what you're trying to play with Blue Iris by mapping that. So let me know what that is. There's an issue open now with Ecowit, by the way, since it didn't update it. What's the GitHub issue or whatever? Home Assistant GitHub. Is it painful watching me type? Issues. Yep. So yeah, here's the version string. So I'm surprised. So there's no comment on this, huh? 17 hours ago. So there must be more than one issue. Yeah, this is another one. No, same thing. It's related to that. Basically, it's stuck in version 5. Don't know what to do. Going to have to get another RPi and try to set up another one that's the newest version. This is an issue previously mentioned. There's a pull request awaiting merge. Okay. So it looks like it's just waiting on, could you please merge this tiny change? Yeah. So it's a known issue. I'm surprised it's taking this long. No, the owner of the repository doesn't seem active. Well, that's disappointing. Yeah. So All right. Well, if you need to fix that, put the manifest stuff in there. Put that version in the manifest, because it looks like this might be an issue that might take a while. And I don't fault people that provide these integrations, just simply because we know that we all get busy, and they're doing this free for the most part. And so if we have a workaround, let's apply the workaround while they're working to get the final thing fixed here. So that's the case there. Here we go. HA CCTV card doesn't allow playback. Could you have that cycle automatically? I think there are settings for that. Where's that? If I go back to this card, I don't remember exactly what the settings are. Well, let me just pull up surveillance card. Survey, I can't spell it, I'm sure. Card home assistant. See what options we have for it. I think you can. That's a spooky picture. It shows all the cameras on the left and shows a big one with motion. Okay, so you can switch the camera when motion is detected. So you can do that. The default is true. Live will show the live view if the stream integration is enabled. Entity of a binary sensor to use for motion detection. So you can do that. So I have, if you notice here, I don't know that I have it set up in the surveillance card yet, because I didn't have this before, but I have, all these are motion. So anytime I get a motion entity or motion whatever via MQTT from Blue Iris, I could actually go to the surveillance card and make the surveillance card update when there's motion. So I don't know that you can make it rotate, but you can make it move on. Okay, update interval for thumbnails, update interval for main image. See camera action before, or yeah, I don't know about rotating it, but you can make it switch on motion. So in that case, that probably is better for what you're looking for anyway. So yes, make it move on motion. All right. To view recorded video and to listen to music. So music, I understand. Even if you're not using a button as a customer, you're seeing it as a whole. Even if you're not using it as a button, the customization for what you're seeing is on a whole nother level. I don't want to put 80 gigs of music on my RPod. Yeah, that's true. So it's just it's essentially another avenue to get your stuff off of that. I may play around with that, because I would like to see if I can make that work. That would be kind of fun. I have Hue, Govee, Sonoff, LiveSmart. I was wondering if getting the Zigbee USB to my Synology and the Mosquito app can help me use all those devices without using all those separate hubs. Hue, Govee. So I know Sonoff has an integration. Hue has an integration. I don't know about LiveSmart and Govee. Wondering if getting that Zigbee USB to my Synology and the Mosquito app can help me. So you just got to look and see if there's integrations for all of that. But one of the big things that Home Assistant is known for is being able to integrate all of these different devices into one seamless interface. So I'm assuming you probably can do a lot of that. If they're Zigbee, you can unassociate them. You can plug them right into your Home Assistant device that's running it and just run it directly from that. I look forward to a video on mounting videos, music, and the media player. This would be so awesome. Works with the hack you mentioned. Okay, good. Yep. So just put the version in for Ecowit. I've moved all my Zigbee stuff off their hubs. I use Conb2. So that's the answer Underdog. Johnny's done that. I feel guilty. I have to HA while I was still sleeping. First time updating without reading the whole release notes. Yep. Breaking changes. I stress breaking changes like nobody's business. Breaking changes. Read those. All right. So we got about another couple of minutes here before I run off and do some other stuff. I run the Conb software on a separate RPi though, as my VM doesn't support USB devices. Yep. And if I guess, Johnny, then you push that into MQTT, right? And then everything runs through that. And in fact, I have my RPi 4 is talking to my MQTT broker, or talking to Z-Wave.js on my production system. So I don't have Z-Wave on my RPi, but I have access to all my Z-Wave devices on my RPi because it's talking to my Z-Wave integration on my production Blue. Yep, Underdog, good luck. it's a fun project. If you're moving off of all that, I mean, that's one of the benefits again of Home Assistant. You don't need 27 different hubs, just integrate it all. Now, if you have devices that are cloud only dependent, you may still have to have cloud accounts and have internet connectivity for that to work. But at least you can get it all into a single interface for the most part. All right. Well, I appreciate all of you watching, even through all of the distractions today. For those that are paying attention, not paying attention, Branson did land successfully and his crew. So that was another successful mission. 9 days from now, it looks like Bezos is going to go up in his rocket. I think that launches from West Texas somewhere in the US. So we'll see how that goes. I appreciate you watching. I'm going to jump off here just because I've got some family stuff to take care of. And I'm always in Discord. I try to answer stuff in Discord as I can in the comments as well. It's been a fun morning. I appreciate you letting me ramble on. I'll throw that mounting USB thing to a video or to a video idea list that I have and see if I can work that up. I always like to play with new stuff. There's a lot of these videos I make that are kind of new looks at the same stuff. So when I see something I haven't seen before, that's kind of fun. So appreciate the idea on that. Y'all have a great Sunday, a great rest of your weekend. For those that are ending your Sunday, have a good week and a good evening. And we will see you on the next stream and the next video. Cheers.